Dealing people can be very difficult or challenging depending on the person you are trying to deal with. But there are strategies, there are different kinds of communication to apply, there are tips and tricks to apply to handle other people well. My name is Shammy, welcome to my channel, and today we are discussing how to handle people. Without further ado, let's dive in. Tip number 1, active listening. If you are not trying to understand what the other person is saying, you will never be able to understand how to deal them well. So in order to understand what they're saying, you need to actively listen. Just not what they're saying, what they're trying to imply, what their body language is, what they're trying to say. You need to understand every single thing to be able to find the strategy to be able to handle them. So active listening is one of the most important rules. Tip number 2, empathy. To be able to understand what the other person is going through, you need to be empathetic. When you are empathetic, you will be able to understand what they're going through, how they're feeling, and this way you can find a way to be able to handle them. Tip number 3, respect. Always be respectful to people no matter what you are doing, who you are talking with, who you are handling. When you are trying to handle someone, if you are being respectful towards them, it will be much easier for you to handle that person instead of being aggressive or disrespectful. Nobody likes a disrespectful person, so you need to be respectful no matter what. Tip number 4, effective communication or strategic communication. Some people may call it manipulation, but I try to call it strategic communication. Why? Because sometimes people don't understand your language. So when you're trying to handle other people, you need to speak their language. If you're an English speaker and the other person is a Japanese speaker, they will never be able to understand what you are trying to say. So instead of saying your language, try to adapt their language. So I'm just saying it to clarify. Sometimes they don't understand what you are saying because your experience and their experience probably is very different. So try to find ways how they can connect and try to understand. This way it will be much easier for you to make them understand what you are trying to say. And always clearly explain what you want and your thoughts and your wish in a polite manner so they also understand what you are trying to say. Sometimes if you are being indirect and sometimes they don't understand, they don't get the line, it's complicated. So don't try to be indirect. Try to be direct but in a very polite manner. At the same time, try to adapt their language so they can easily understand. Tip number 5, assertiveness. Try to be assertive instead of being passive or aggressive. Being assertive is a very easy way to stand up for yourself, also respect others. And you can try to be clear in a respectful way, so you can always be assertive in your communication. Tip number 6, conflict resolution. Conflict is a very normal part of human interaction. So if there is a conflict between you two or like in a group, try to resolve the conflict before you try to handle them. When you are trying to handle somebody, if you don't resolve any conflict, the conflict will be main problem. So try to focus on the problem or the issue in hand instead of being aggressive or targeting them as a person. So don't do that because that is not your goal. When you're trying to resolve a conflict, you're basically trying to minimize the problem between you two. So you don't want to make it more obvious. Always try to resolve a conflict before you handle them. Tip number 7, adaptability. Adaptability is a key to communicate with other people or dealing with other people. So when you are trying to deal with other people, try to be adaptive and try always to adapt new ways to deal with them. If they are not understanding your way of communication, try to adapt their way of communication because every person is different, every situation is different, and everybody has different kinds of cultural, religious background. So you need to understand that what they are talking about and what they are feeling about and how they will be able to understand what you are trying to say. So always speak their language and be adaptable. Sometimes you need to rearrange whatever your action is or rephrase your action point so it's easy for you to deal with them. Tip number 8, boundaries. Establish a boundary and maintain the boundary, and it should be clear about your personal boundaries. So and at the same time you need to be respectful to other people about their boundary. Do not cross your boundary and try to be within the boundary when you are talking to them or dealing with them. Sometimes I have seen that people become very aggressive and they target them personally, and that's not a good way to do it. And sometimes in case you have overstepped your boundaries, you can always go ahead and apologize to that person. Like, hey, I'm sorry I overstepped my boundary and I'm really sorry about that. I hope in future I will maintain my boundaries. At the same time you can do the same. So this way you can minimize the problems and it will be easier for you to handle the other person. Tip number 9, patience. So when you are dealing with people, you need to be patient because people are different, people's mind works differently. You can't be very pushy about things when you are dealing with other people, especially when you are trying to be positive about the situation. So always be patient. If you are impatient, you can always take a deep breath, center yourself and take a pause and talk about whatever is going on again. Tip number 10, collaboration. When you are working working in a group or dealing with a group of people, you always need to collaborate, and in case you are not collaborating and try to be dominator or dominating the situation, people might not like it. So sometimes we see people, they are dominating and we don't like it, and this way we feel that they're the one who's winning the situation. So if you can make them feel that it's a win-win situation or they are winning the situation, it will be much easier for you to handle them. So if you are in a group or dealing with a group of people, always try to be collaborative so they also feel that it is a win-win situation or they're winning the situation. Tip number 11, avoid assumptions. Sometimes people say something and we feel like, I already know. You may not know, you may be wrong, because people are different. They are different in different situations, so may not want the same thing despite being the same person or the other person. So avoid assumptions and try to listen what they want to say. Avoid assumption in all costs. So this way you can minimize a lot of mistakes that may happen in the near future. Tip number 12, positive feedback. Try to praise and give positive feedback to other people. In this way it's much easier to win their heart, and when they have a positive impression about you, you will be in an upper hand to deal them positively. Tip number 13, manage expectations. Sometimes people may not meet your expectations or you may not meet theirs. So try to be realistic whatever the situation is, and when you are realistic, you will avoid a lot of things that may have happened if you have more expectation from that person. You cannot control other people. You are powerless over them. You can control your expectations. So try to be realistic in every situation. Tip number 14, self-awareness. Reflect on your actions and how it may affect other people. Sometimes we do something and we don't realize it, that may affect negatively other people, and that may bounce back in your case because you are trying to deal with other people, and you need to be self-aware about your actions so you do not hurt them, you do not hurt yourself, and you do not make the situation worse or any worse. So try to be self-awareness and always reflect on your actions. I sometimes reflect on my actions every single day when I go sleep in my bed. This way I can always work on my personal development and I can make the next day better always. So you can try the same, or you can do it in the morning or whenever you are free. Sometimes everybody is not willing to do it every day. Whenever it suits you, whenever you're free, you can do the same. Tip number 15, cultural difference. We are different people, we have different cultures, different religions, different geography, and we act differently. We respond differently. So try to understand what you are dealing with and which country they are from, what is their gender, what is their background, what is their religion. This way you'll probably have an upper hand and you will understand them better, and this way it will be much easier for you to deal with other people. So when you're trying to deal with other people, try to remember that you cannot control them. You cannot control over other people. You are powerless over them. But you can control yourself, your actions, and your thoughts. So I have a very famous line that I really like, and that is, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change the way you think about it. So when you are trying to change other people and you cannot do that because they are a different person and you have no hold over them, then you change the way you think about it. So you can change your thought, how you are responding to the situation, and you can have a proper strategy communication to deal with that person. Whatever tips and tricks we have shared today, it may help you to deal with other people, but remember that it takes years to master these skills. Try to write it down on your pen and paper or your phone, so whenever you are dealing with other people, you can apply all these tips and tricks, so you can remember to center yourself and take a pause and rephrase the course of action, how to deal with other people. Thank you for watching our video. See you soon.